Becoming Michael Jackson required far more than wearing famous costumes or learning a few iconic dance moves. It demanded an extraordinary transformation that reached beyond appearances and into the essence of one of the most recognizable entertainers in history. Every glance, every subtle expression, every movement across the stage had to convince audiences who had spent decades watching Michael Jackson perform. Even the smallest mistake would stand out. For Jaafar Jackson, stepping into that role meant dedicating years of preparation before cameras ever rolled. His journey started long before filming began. Rather than relying only on natural family resemblance, Jaafar immersed himself in Michael's world. He carefully studied concerts, interviews, rehearsals, and performances, paying attention not just to the spectacular moments everyone remembered, but also to the quieter details that revealed Michael's personality. His goal wasn't to imitate a legend on the surface. He wanted to understand the person behind the global superstar. Jaafar later explained that one of the most rewarding parts of preparing for the role was discovering Michael's private side. Millions knew the performer who dazzled audiences with groundbreaking choreography and unforgettable music, but far fewer understood the thoughtful, creative individual hidden behind the spotlight. Exploring that side of Michael became one of the foundations of his performance, allowing him to portray more than just the famous image audiences expected. However, even with years of research and practice, one major challenge quickly became obvious. Michael Jackson's appearance was so distinctive that recreating it would require much more than expert makeup. His face had changed throughout different stages of his life, and many of his defining features simply couldn't be duplicated with cosmetics alone. The makeup department immediately realized that achieving complete authenticity would require a combination of traditional techniques and modern visual effects. Prosthetics could help reshape certain features, but they had clear limitations. Some details, especially the shape of Michael's nose, couldn't be reproduced perfectly without digital assistance. The artists responsible for Jaafar's transformation openly admitted that there were physical characteristics they simply couldn't change. Jaafar naturally has a healthy, slightly arched nose, while Michael's later appearance featured a much smaller, upward-turned profile. Even with carefully designed prosthetics, matching that exact shape wasn't possible. Because of this, visual effects artists became an essential part of the process. Instead of attempting impossible physical alterations, they worked alongside the makeup department to subtly refine Jaafar's appearance after filming. Their goal wasn't to create a completely artificial face, but to make small adjustments that would complete the illusion without distracting viewers. Finding the right balance proved far more difficult than anyone initially expected. During early testing, some experiments pushed the transformation much further. The creative team explored versions that made Jaafar resemble Michael almost perfectly. Although technically impressive, those early attempts created an unexpected problem. Rather than helping audiences connect with the performance, the heavy alterations felt unnatural and even unsettling. The filmmakers soon realized they were approaching the challenge from the wrong direction. Their objective wasn't to erase Jaafar's identity. Viewers needed to recognize Michael Jackson on screen, while also understanding that it was Jaafar delivering the performance. If the digital effects became too overwhelming, audiences might focus entirely on the technology instead of the acting. That realization shaped every decision that followed. Instead of chasing absolute physical perfection, the production embraced a more balanced philosophy. They aimed to preserve Jaafar's natural expressions while enhancing enough details to remind viewers of Michael. The result allowed both identities to exist together, creating a performance that felt authentic rather than artificial. The close relationship between the makeup artists and the visual effects department became one of the film's greatest strengths. Rather than working separately, both teams collaborated from the earliest stages of production, discussing every detail before cameras even started rolling. Each department understood that their work depended on the other. Prosthetics had to be designed with digital enhancements in mind, while computer artists needed to know exactly what had already been achieved physically. This constant communication helped create a seamless final appearance instead of one that looked patched together. The professionals involved emphasized that collaboration was essential because every improvement made the overall illusion stronger. Instead of competing for credit, both departments shared the same goal: convincing audiences that they were truly watching Michael Jackson come back to life on screen. This teamwork became even more important because the story spans multiple periods of Michael's remarkable career. As the film progresses through different eras, Jaafar's appearance must evolve alongside the changing image Michael presented to the world. Each period of his life featured distinct hairstyles, clothing, makeup, and facial characteristics that audiences instantly recognize. Future installments will require transformations representing the dangerous, history, and invincible eras, each demanding entirely different visual approaches. The military-inspired costumes of the history period, the sleeker fashion of the 2000s, and the subtle facial changes from one decade to another all require careful attention to detail. Every version of Michael carried its own identity, and the production understands that fans remember each era differently. Capturing those transitions convincingly will help audiences experience the passage of time naturally as Michael's story unfolds across multiple films. While the physical transformation captured headlines, Jaafar revealed that earning the role itself was perhaps an even greater challenge. Unlike a traditional casting process, his audition stretched over nearly 2 years. Instead of attending a few meetings and reading lines, he spent months proving that he possessed the dedication required to portray one of the world's most iconic performers. Throughout those years, he trained continuously without any guarantee that he would eventually receive the part. One of the biggest tests came when filmmakers assigned him an almost impossible challenge. The team selected Michael's legendary Billie Jean performance from the Motown 25 television special, arguably one of the most famous live performances in entertainment history, and asked Jaafar to master it. He had only 20 days. For someone still developing his skills, the deadline seemed overwhelming. He openly admitted that he doubted whether it could even be done. In his mind, 20 days felt nowhere near enough time to recreate choreography that had taken Michael years to perfect. Still, he accepted the challenge. Day after day, he analyzed every frame of the performance, breaking down movements into tiny details that most viewers would never notice. Every step, pause, turn, and gesture became part of an intense learning process. Those 20 days pushed him beyond anything he had experienced before. Although exhausting, the experience became the foundation for everything that followed. It proved not only to the filmmakers, but also to Jaafar himself that he was capable of handling the enormous responsibility placed before him. Yet another obstacle remained. At the time, Jaafar had virtually no acting experience. In fact, acting had never been part of his career plans. He admitted that stepping into such an enormous role created constant internal conflict because he genuinely didn't know whether he possessed the skills necessary to portray someone as emotionally complex as Michael Jackson. Rather than pretending confidence, he chose to start from the beginning. He hired an acting coach and devoted roughly a year simply to learning what acting actually meant. Before attempting to embody Michael, he wanted to understand the fundamentals of performance itself. Only after building that foundation did he return to studying Michael's life. He revisited interviews, music videos, lyrics, concert footage, and countless personal moments, gradually allowing those observations to influence his own performance. Instead of copying isolated behaviors, he began connecting them into a complete understanding of Michael's personality. The dedication impressed many members of the Jackson family. When Jackie Jackson finally watched footage from the film, he experienced an emotional reaction that surprised even him. Having spent decades performing alongside his brother, Jackie recognized details that only close family members could truly appreciate. He explained that many entertainers have tried to imitate Michael over the years. Countless tribute artists successfully copy the dance moves, clothing, and vocal style. But in his view, Jaafar accomplished something much rarer. He didn't simply imitate Michael. He became him. Jackie admitted that watching the performance brought tears to his eyes because, for moments at a time, he forgot he was watching his nephew. Instead, he felt as though Michael himself had returned to the stage. That emotional response carried enormous significance because it came from someone who knew Michael better than almost anyone else. Other members of the Jackson family expressed remarkably similar opinions. They described feeling overwhelmed as they watched Jaafar recreate Michael's presence with an authenticity they had never expected. Rather than seeing a relative wearing familiar costumes, they found themselves transported back to memories of Michael's greatest performances. Their reaction suggested that Jaafar's years of preparation had achieved something extraordinary. The countless hours of studying, rehearsing, practicing, and refining every tiny detail were finally visible on screen. More importantly, they confirmed that portraying Michael Jackson demanded far more than technical skill. It required patience. It required humility. It required years of relentless work behind the scenes. And above all, it required understanding not just the legendary performer the world celebrated, but also the deeply human individual whose life inspired generations of fans around the globe. After proving he could handle the role, Jaafar shifted his attention away from simply copying Michael Jackson's performances and toward understanding the man himself. He knew audiences wouldn't be convinced by an accurate moonwalk alone. The emotions behind every performance, the confidence, the vulnerability, and the passion all had to feel authentic. To achieve that, he immersed himself in every stage of Michael's remarkable career. Rather than focusing only on the superstar years, Jaafar began at the very beginning. He carefully studied the Jackson 5 era, observing how a young Michael carried himself on stage and interacted with his brothers. As he continued through the years of the Jacksons, he noticed how Michael's confidence gradually evolved. Each performance reflected a different stage of his personal and artistic growth, revealing a performer who was constantly striving to improve. Instead of simply memorizing choreography, Jaafar tried to understand what Michael might have been feeling during those different moments in his life. He paid close attention to the emotions behind the music, the growing desire for creative independence, and the determination that pushed Michael to continually reinvent himself. Those emotional layers became just as important as mastering the famous dance routines. Eventually, his research extended far beyond concert footage and television appearances. One of the most valuable resources available to him was Michael's own personal writings.